So let's see. Today's topic is going to be consent, communication, and conflict resolution. Don't ask me why I'm so fond of alliteration. But apparently I am. I just think that they're interesting things to string together.
Questions in the group chat.
Questions in the group chat. If you go out to Word, and then it's right there. You can just copy 5 at a time because it won't take all of them.
So while Kat handles that,
Well,
hi
Kat is
everyone.
Getting everybody.
It's been a while. It's been crazy. It's been a joy watching you guys grow with Kat and just observing it from the exterior. Hold on, let me introduce you to someone. Come here, baby.
Introduce. It is. We have a visitor this
Come here,
week
baby.
where now she's gonna make you chase her all around.
Oh no, how adorable.
This everybody, this is Inca.
Oh,
Inca's a lap dog.
She really is total love.
Right.
She's been with
Or is it a couch dog?
Yeah.
exactly. All right. Anybody, this happened one time before. Somebody was willing to like copy and paste these back into the chat periodically as people file in, because I'm not going to be able to do that today with the given setup.
I can do that.
Thank you so
Awesome, thank
much.
you.
I appreciate that, Cosmo. So one of the things we decided rolling into February is that we would just acknowledge the fact that, you know, a vast majority of us here are kinky people having conversations. And yet the topics are still relevant, you know, to people, whether they're kinky or not. Consent is something that we talk about a lot in this community, in the LGBTQ, you know, all of the minority communities. We all talk about consent. But I think it's applicable to everyone. And then what communication comes out of that model of consent. And then I think all of it goes to conflict resolution. And I brought it, why did I bring up conflict resolution? Because I think it's something that we need to talk about. I think it's something that in the world since Me Too, there's a whole lot of blaming. There's a whole lot of making people wrong. And you can't resolve conflict if you're busy just trying to figure out who you want to blame. And getting away from blaming usually requires communication. And then somewhere along the way, there was some miscommunication or misunderstanding or whatever that had to do with consent. And they're hot topics, but I thought that looking at them all together could be helpful. I'm mostly ever interested in things being helpful. And so that's kind of that. I have had some challenging times around the lack of conflict resolution in life in general, in my own personal experiences and in relationships that I've had, whether they be work or personal. I was thinking about this earlier today, like a larger number of relationships. If I look in my rearview mirror, there's a larger number of unresolved things with people back there than I wish that there were. And some of them are things that I can't do anything about now, or I've done as much about them as I can for now. Some of them are just question marks that I feel left with, you know, could I have done something different? If I could have, what would it have been? You all have heard me talk about my history or my pedigree. I'm trained to look at myself first in the event of a conflict, in the event of a miscommunication of any kind. I'm trained to not blame anyone but me first. I'm trained to look at myself and see, what did I do? How did I, you know, what could I have done different? You know, because not invariably, it's not always 100% of the time, but a lot of the times I was unkind. I could have been more thoughtful. I could have taken the other person into account more of the time. And to the degree that I can become aware of what I did or didn't do in this particular setting is the degree to which I become free to do it differently the next time, right? If I stay stuck in, well, it was the other person and they were wrong And I don't ever look at what it was I did or said that I could have done or said differently. I don't ever allow myself the freedom and the opportunity to make things be better next time, with whoever or wherever that's going to be. So those are some of my musings on this subject. I don't know. Oh, Cosmo.
I'm happy to like share and kick us off. So like a couple of years ago when I was like 6 to 9 months into my local scene, I was more or less like canceled in my local community, ostracized for sure. And yeah, I realized that I had like a poor understanding of consent, especially in the way that like people in like kink communities understand consent. My understanding of consent was like mostly in the like legal realm. And also I like totally didn't understand boundaries at all and was just like really poor with that. And then I kind of went down this like rabbit hole of just studying like everything that I could get my hands on, reading everything, going to like all of these different consent classes. I learned about anti-binary consent, trauma-informed consent, embodied consent, consent as a felt sense. So now I have like very, I would say I've developed some like strong opinions around consent. And yeah, I like to, or I view consent as like a felt sense. Like most of the time when I'm talking about it, I unless I'm like describing something else, like if I'm talking about legal consent, I'll just say like legal consent. But yeah, I view it as like a felt sense. And I personally try to practice trauma-informed, intersectional, anti-binary, embodied consent. Lots of words.
Am I the only one who needs a little bit more definition about some of that?
I was Cosmo, could you go a little bit deeper into those definitions? Just, I mean, because I'm sure
Yeah, sure.
that
So anti-binary means that you don't just view consent within the realm of like yes or no, but you see it more as existing on a spectrum. And I can find later when I'm not talking, I can find something and drop like an infographic in the chat that kind of explains that a little bit more. Trauma informed or trauma aware consent practices really just mean that like you have at least some knowledge about trauma responses, and you're incorporating that into your consent practices. So like if someone looks like they're having like a trauma response, you're not just gonna like continue on playing with them as usual. You might, you know, as the top decide to end the scene, because something looks like it's, you know, wrong, um, as opposed to waiting for the bottom to like read out of the scene or safe word out of the scene. Intersectional, so thinking about power differentials. So it kind of looks at like different types of privilege, identity, also like social capital. So is this person Do they own the dungeon that I'm playing at? Does this person are they an organizer? Do they know like 800 people in the scene and I know 5? Things like that. And then embodied is the last one. So that's basically like being able to feel your yes or your no in your body. And there are like embodiment practices that you can do to like work on that. But basically like asking yourself in a moment, like, okay, this is how I feel about this situation. And then learning how to actually like recognize that. Because a lot of times people just say like yes to shit and they don't actually want to do the thing. They're just saying yes because they think they have to say yes and they're not paying attention to how their body feels. When like in reality, their body's going, fuck no. And I feel like when it comes to consent, someone's yes is only as good as someone's no. Like if someone can't say no, you can't trust their yes. And that's like the type of person that's like scary to play with or get involved with, or maybe even just interact with. I don't know.
Wow, I just learned a whole lot. It never ever occurred to me to think of myself, because I am in the position of event host, space host. It never occurred to me to think of it as a power differential.
Absolutely, Ramona.
It never crossed my mind. Wow. And of course the embodied thing, I have an issue even with personally. Like I have a hard time always knowing where in my body I am in terms of, and I can tell you I have straight up tons of experience inside myself of not wanting to do something and saying yes anyway, because I felt like I should, or I felt like I ought to. And not so much about consent thing, like play consent things, but about a whole host of other things. So wow, I don't know if anybody else learned as much as I just did, but thank you so much for that. So that was our primer on consent. Does anyone else have anything they want to say about consent, or does anybody have any experience with conflict resolution that they want to share about?
I mean, you could give a whole 45 minutes of all of this stuff.
Well, that's true too, but that's not why I have that's not why this is a discussion.
Phoenix?
Hey everybody. Yeah, I had some issues in the community, like Cosmo had mentioned. I was pretty much exiled by people who I thought were my friends. And it's like I don't know really, like if like conflict resolution, like is really only resolved if both parties feel like it's resolved, right? And some people feel like they don't have something to resolve. So what do you do in that situation?
I don't know. It's not resolved.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like I don't know. What do you do in a situation where people aren't even willing to engage in conversation when you're trying to point out problems and they don't even want to hear, especially when it's their own people or themselves and they can't hear it. It's impossible to resolve a conflict with people who can't take criticism or who can't be open to discussing issues, especially people who just want to take jabs and then not talk. What do you do in those situations? Run. That's funny, Lise. Yeah. Best idea. Avoid those people. I learned that. Yeah, I learned that lesson.
Also said you can't resolve shit with people. I've got a history of being canceled as well, about half a decade ago at the just past the peak of the Me Too movement. And what's intense about I built my reputation on character, on trust and respect and equality. And when I had 2 relationships dissolved within a year, the second one became really messy politically on the community level. And The tough part about it is that no one ever came to ask. No one came to step up for resolution. No one came asking about information, and one party decided to share, and the other party decided to not share. And everyone who wanted to hear what they wanted to hear listened, and the ones who didn't. And what's intense about it is when you can't prove something that didn't happen, or there's a level of miscommunication, or there's misinformation amongst the party, aside from the deed that happens, like that this happened, whether a person admits it or not, aside from that, when it comes to the accusation part of it, there's no process in the community for it, right? Whether a person did it or not, that's not relevant. There's no process when people have conflict. And it doesn't do anyone justice. It doesn't bring integrity to the community, which the community is supposed to be built on. It doesn't bring due process on a just level. I mean, we're here trying to be rebellious, honorable people, but yet we can't live honorable lives by practicing what we preach, at least when it comes to the pillars of leather and all that stuff. But unless there's people willing to step up and put a process in place, it stays heavily political. And I'm thankful that, like yourself, Phoenix, I'm a few years further along the process of trial by community. What you realize is community isn't what you think it is. And finding tribe and finding people who have the same beliefs and processes as you do is paramount. Because while we may all dress alike and we may all be into kinky things, it doesn't mean we all have the same principles or process that brings truth to the forefront, period, of whether a person's guilty, not, misunderstanding, misinformation, mistakes, whatever it is. Until there's a process in place and people are willing to step up to do it, the community at large lacks the level of integrity that in which they hold members to the community up to anyway. So it's really tough. It's really tough. So finding, and it's not about going out there and crying about what happened and stuff like that. It's like, I understand that too, but there comes a point where it's like, listen, let's just talk about what happened. Just talk about it, because no one's being heard and everyone's throwing spears, and it just it fractions the community apart. With that being said, I have done mediation before Me Too. So when it comes to these types of processes, when there's an issue on the community level, my role as an event host and as someone who has led in the community, I don't want to self-project, right? Leader of the community, but I find it's my responsibility to step up to the plate and help people figure shit out, right, through the process of truth, because that's what has to happen if we're doing it.
Anyone who has the ability to do, not everyone has the ability to step up and say to people, let's do this, let's come to the table. But the people who do are the people who ought to.
Also, just for the record, people be like, well, what qualifies you? I was a criminal investigator for the feds for like a decade. So it's like, I can do investigations. I can sit and talk to someone and just ask relevant questions, right? It's like, truth matters to me. It has to be out there. And it's like, if there is no truth, there's no communication. There's no resolution.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I see Kieran, and I also see Ren, but I do want to say, just to acknowledge it, that Cosmo, I would like to hear at some point if you ever were able to come back from your being canceled so early into your kink community. I suppose you're still here, so that's testament to the fact that you didn't just go away. But I'd love to hear how that turned out later. Anyway, Kieran, I know you've had your hand up.
Yeah, I've been noticing this a lot, that people want to call themselves leaders, but yet people lack the skills and the training to do conflict resolution. And Joshua, what you said, Master Joshua, what you said about investigation, bingo. Nobody wants to investigate. It's about, and even at work, we've had trainings on crucial conversations when it's uncomfortable and how to have them. one of my leaders and I just recently were having just chit chatting, about intent versus impact, and we landed on we investigate based upon the facts, and so I don't know, and what I've noticed in this community is that, and I've been saying over and over again in different formats, and I was like, we really need to train people who want to hold themselves as leaders on communication and conflict resolution. So, and thank you for shaking your head, Master Joshua, because I mean it unless you have to have a certain level of training, I think, to have a little bit more. And I'm not saying like you have to have it, but it gives a little bit more framework to it to have those to remain objective and investigate and get to the facts a little bit, because it may land on a side that is not popular. But so you're having to deal with conjecture of what someone else is saying as opposed to the facts. And you have to stand in those facts. So I'm glad you brought this up. And I was wondering if conflict resolution was solely in relation to consent violations as opposed to the community at large, because that could probably be an entire day training.
It covers everything. It covers any type of conflict that allows the community to function in a peaceful manner, where people can be in space together and feel validated, seen, and heard.
And this is any kind of community. I know we're talking about the kink community because of consent and all this business, but in any community, whether it's a work environment,
Right.
family, like conflict resolution as a concept is something that everyone could afford a little bit more of, just even philosophically, to say, to the best that we're going to be able to, let's come to the table and see what we can find for solution, rather than staying stuck in viewpoints, staying in punishment. And a lot of that's hurt feelings, and a lot of that's like an inability to want to see oneself as having made a mistake, or having, so many of these things to me boil down to miscommunications and misunderstandings. I had a woman that I worked with once, years and years ago. She used to say, never attribute to malice what is more easily explained by ignorance. And it's always genius to me, because it's
that is really good.
We're so quick to judge. We're so quick to make people wrong, when in fact someone was just having an off day, wasn't thinking before they spoke. You had a different definition of the same words you were using. There's usually way less ill intent than people want to make it out to be. Anyway, Ren.
I just wanted to go back a little bit to Purple Phoenix and Kat, and talking about lack of ability, lack of conflict resolution with certain situations, and the ability not to go to those. There is actually somatic bodywork practices that can help resolve those issues, not through personal contact, but through contact at a higher level with both parties. So there are some practices that are really, really helpful to be able to do that.
Can you say more about that?
It's a process where the individual who wants resolution or information about a situation that happened, they place a pillow or an object in front of them. And it's about tapping into higher consciousness of both individuals. And then the conversation just begins with the person talking to the object as if they were that person. And it ends up that you change places. Some people can do this alone. Some people have to have a facilitator. So you change to the conflict person, and then you're talking to an object, a pillow, whatever you were sitting on before. And then and then you change places back and forth. It actually is a super, super great process for at least solving things within yourself.
Wow, that's awesome. So you actually have the conversation from both sides, but
yes, you're just doing it yourself. A facilitator is really helpful for a lot of people. Not everybody can do it themselves.
I can see that. You can see like to have a facilitator help keep you on track or help keep you a little bit more objective than you might be able to be on your own. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and then going back, you know, keeping you, like you say, on track. I don't know anything to ask or to say. Well, this is what you told me about the situation. How about that? Oh, okay.
Is that Cosmo's hand?
Mhm.
Cosmo?
Yes.
Yeah, Kat, you already touched on this, but I wanted to just kind of like further reiterate your point about the assumption of ill intent. I see that all the time in kink communities. Everyone just wants to like assume that anyone that's done anything bad is acting out of malice. And I really think that that's like more rare than we like to think it is. And this was actually, I attended just a couple hours ago a class with Mia, who owns Consent Wizardry, who is the person who made that yes to no spectrum, and is one of my favorite consent educators of all time. I've actually never, up until today, attended one of their classes before because they're really expensive. And they're an intimacy coordinator for film and TV, which is cool. But anyway, they said during their class that most of the time it's like people don't have ill intentions when they violate someone's consent. Most of the time it's just a mistake. It's just people having poor boundaries, poor understandings around consent and boundaries. Which you know, doesn't mean that like harming other people doesn't make it okay. But I think that it still can be helpful in repairing things. You asked me what had happened with me. I everything happened almost 2 years ago. And I think since then, I maybe have gone to like one play party, and that was like with a person. And then I've only gone to like a few munches, and most of the munches that I went to, I more or less like not forced myself to go, but I made myself go as a way of trying to like desensitize myself. So like I was kind of terrified to go the first time, and one was like it's walking distance from where I live. So I told myself that I was just going to walk with my dog in the direction of the munch. That was my goal. Like I made that my goal because I didn't want to like fail. So I just like started walking in that direction, and then eventually somehow made it to where I was like 5 minutes away, and I started to feel like super panicky, and I had to stop, and I did my dog does deep pressure therapy. So I did deep pressure therapy with my dog. And then I like went in to the munch. And to be perfectly honest, like it fucking sucked. It's really shitty to like be in a space where you have like 15, 20 people just like act like you don't exist as a human being. And yeah, it's shitty. And also it's already cliquey. So so then you also have people there that just like want to stick with their like clicks as it is. So I had gone back like I went back a couple of times after that, and there was like it was getting better, but like some people were like, "Oh, did you have fun?" I'm like, "No, let's not use the word fun. Like that's no, I wouldn't call that fun. I would call that like work, like effort. Like it was not enjoyable. It was like I was doing it to try to like work on my anxiety, basically. yeah, I think as someone with like, CPTSD and panic disorder, um, it just like makes shit worse. But also I came into the community really with a main goal of like making friends and like building community. Like I have almost no vanilla friends. Mostly like they've all moved away. So when I had started to make friends in the scene, and there were people that like I had hung out with in vanilla settings, like not at munches, not at play parties. I thought like, oh, I'm making like real friends. And then those people just like fell off the face of the earth. When like I became the bad person not to associate with. So that's where that is. I also decided to like make my own Discord server with a lot of resources because I felt like there were a lot of like soft skills that I needed that I didn't have coming into the community. And so I wanted to basically like build a space thinking like if I need this, somebody else needs this. So I've like provided those resources to other people. And then from like going to like educational stuff, I started like making friends virtually. So like most of like the kinky people that I know, um, thanks Purple Phoenix. Most of the kinksters that I know like virtually. So I have more of like a virtual community. Yeah.
Cosmo, if I can share with you something,
Sure.
there's got to be a point where self-forgiveness comes in, right? You accept what you did, you recognize what you didn't do, because that's also another part of it is being painted as the big bad wolf by the telephone game. It impacts people intensely, right? I understand 100%. And then it's like understanding that this experience in your life also, if it gets to filter out people who don't have forgiveness in their own heart or the ability to reflect or put themselves in someone else's shoes, right? So it's like it's lonely because you're doing the work. Actually, I wanted to ask you about teaching a class on consent because it sounds like you have a hell of a lot of knowledge and you need to be given an opportunity to show what you know. Because that's the other thing. At what point is a person given an opportunity to show how much they've changed if the doors are never opened again?
I just want to say real quick, if you're ever in New York, you can come here
anytime,
all the time. You have a community here, like right now, just so you know. I don't know how far away you are from here, but certainly you're in our community, this little community on Tuesdays at 6 every week. But I think you're awesome. So, what about that?
I appreciate that. I also wanted to, if anyone else had their hands up, I would shut up. But I had asked when things like happened, I had asked like an organizer at the time about like peer mediation. Like, oh, I asked them like, does anyone do like mediation? And basically no. And one of the ideas that I have is I don't have like the resources, the time or the money for it right now, but one of the ideas I have is I would really like to at some point in the future create an organization that is made up of like peer mediators for kinksters, because like we have like couples therapy, right? Like couples therapy exists, but like we don't have like, it's not like if you get into or like you have like a falling out or a conflict with like a play partner, you're gonna like go to a fucking couples therapist. You know what I mean? Like that's just like not a thing. Or maybe it is.
Thing that I worked out about this, right? Like this would be national, and there would be people who would be referred from all the different communities to this national sort of board or whatever.
Yes.
And people like here in New York have an issue, we would go to this organization, people would be pulled in from not our community, people who
Yes, that is the crucial component right there. Ding, ding, ding. Yes, that is my idea. And I think so it could be virtual. People could do virtual peer mediation and be paired with a mediator who is not in their community, who is not connected to those people. They're just a neutral person. It wouldn't be for anyone that's like not familiar with peer mediation. The mediator would not make any determinations, any judgments. They don't say you're banned from this or you can't attend that or whatever. They all they're there for is to help act as like a peaceful translator between the two parties. Also, I see in the chat someone said, can that be facilitated via the NCSF? No. I've gotten
I can say something about NCSF. So when I had my experience with drop it in the chat.
Okay.
Because that's what I was copying. But what we're
Okay.
doing is dropping a community conduct policy that we came across when the Me Too movement first kicked off. It was created by a lawyer in Philly. It covers everything from top to bottom, everything you can imagine about penalty and punishment. I'm putting it all in quotes, as well as reconciliation, mediation. It covers everything. And it's a solid example. It's free for everyone to use within your communities. Send it to all your community leaders. Let them see that there is a format for conflict resolution. Because what would happen then is you put the responsibility of being leaders on their lap now, because they can't say they don't have something. So it's like, look at this. I mean, review it first, please review it and just see if you agree with what's stated on there. And if so, present it to them. If not, make any adjustments and present it to them, or if not, just scrap it all together. But at least you have an idea of what something like that could look like.
But you'll get a sense reading it. Like Joshua and I met each other, and I had never seen this, and he had never seen it. We both operated like this innately within the community, right? When I had my space, if people came with a complaint of any kind, I heard them out. Then I went and I said, I'm going to talk to the other party. I'd bring the other party in and talk to them. Like, and I just assumed everyone did that. Like, I like, this is just a mirror to me of like the foundation of the country we live in. Like, people are innocent until proven guilty, at least according to the Constitution. Like, I had never seen rampant, like, kick people to the curb without as much as a thought. Like, I had no idea that this was going on out here until I met you, until all this craziness. It's like nuts.
So NCSF is fantastic for particular things. What and
National Coalition for Sexual Freedom.
they dropped it.
NCSF.
They
Oh,
dropped
okay,
it.
I don't see the chat.
And I've spoken with Susan Wright, and what they've transitioned to in mediating is newish, and I'll tell you how I found that out. So through this process of being canceled by the community, I came across some information about NCSF having an unofficial blacklist of people within the community who have done egregious acts of consent violation, and it could be any range of accusation. All you have to do is call them in, give the name, what you're accusing them of, and it's anonymous. You don't have to leave a name. They also don't do, with that list, they compiled that they said was unofficial. You could call in and ask, say, I'm in New York and I'm curious about this person. Are they on this list? And they would give you information. Now, what they didn't do was cross-check any of this information. They didn't contact the people being accused. They didn't provide them an opportunity what was being said about them, anything along these lines. It was pretty intense. Now,
And it wasn't just that they said it was not official. They said it didn't exist.
they said it didn't
For a while.
exist.
They said the list didn't exist.
So-
Even though we'd had conversations, private conversations that confirmed that it did.
So over half a decade of going through this process of trying to defend myself to things that within the community mob, this list was spoken of to different organizers, different organizations, like big national stuff. I'm pretty notorious if you haven't heard. So now this is the depth of how deep this stuff affects a person when you're trying to protect your character. Through that time of being accused, dark thoughts come up, and it's really, really, really intense. It affected me professionally. It still affects me once a month at least. Maybe not so much now. Maybe once every 2 months. And I still have to lead with it. I still have to lead with, hey, this is who I am. This is what people have said about me in the past. Okay, let's talk business, right? It's really intense. So last year, I was lucky enough to be at the APA, American Psychological Association, because I'm working on legitimizing BDSM as a form of therapy. And those are the type of circles that I have to navigate, right? So I come across NCSF as a table. And there's a woman back there that looks just like Susan Wright. And I've reached out to her. I've called them out on social media a number of times about this unofficial list. And I've panicked. I went into freeze mode.
A trauma response.
And luckily, Shweta was there with me. And I texted her immediately and I said, I need you to come with me because I need to address this. Because I have a short list of people who have done things and chosen to lead with judgment before even providing me an opportunity to speak. And she was one of them, this list that didn't exist. So Shweta is there with me, and Washington, D.C. has a one-party consent because I recorded this conversation. And I recorded it because I had to call her out on this list. I said, hi, Susan, my name is Joshua, also known as Master Joshua. You may have heard of me. And at first it didn't click. And then I talked about this list and she denied it. And this conversation was about 9 minutes long. And she denied it 3 times until I spoke about suicide. And when I said that, she stopped denying it and the tune changed. And there was some apology, which I didn't buy. Only until her husband stepped in did I accept it. But what she told me was they were changing their process and their policy because of this. Not because of my situation, but because of the ill-intended effect that happened. And I told her, I said, yet it still happened. There are still victims to your list that doesn't exist. So they said that they changed their process and they ended up following up with an email, as she said she would, about mediation services that they offered NCSF, some paid, some not paid, some with a fee, some not with a fee. I don't remember what the email said. So I don't know where NCSF lies today, but they did have a checkered past and I did call her out on it. And she did say that they changed their policy and her email that she followed up with, because I told her, this is between you and God now. She's off my list because once I got to express to her what happened, it was gone. So it's like, I don't know where they're at right now. But these are the types of things that people experience and things that aren't discussed. Cosmo.
I wanted to add that some people think that NCSF does peer mediation themselves, and they don't. It's also a very small board, and there are only, I know Susan Wright answers incident reports that come in, and I think there's only 1 or 2 other people that look at them. Other members of the board have other responsibilities, and they don't look at those reports or respond to them. I know that they will refer people to mediation. I haven't heard of any like free resources, which is like, and maybe they do refer free peer mediation. I don't know. But that is, I mean, the main reason why I thought about it is, one, because these things usually cost money, and two, I think it would be hard to talk to a peer mediator if they don't understand kink. That's an issue. People are going to be less comfortable talking to someone if it's about kink and or in the kink community, and this person is totally vanilla or has no understanding or awareness about kink. The other thing I can say is I know that organizers can still access incident reports if they're coalition members. They can request. So to my knowledge, they're not just like given the information, but they can request information about a specific person that maybe they're, I don't know, suspicious or curious about. And then if reports exist on that person, I believe they ask for the consent of the person who submitted the report for those reports to be shared. That's like the latest information I have on that.
Yeah, it's been hard. It's been hard to sit and watch.
Oh, and I wanted to share, sorry, the last tidbit was on the topic of suicide. I personally like have connected with other people that have been canceled and still continue to do it. Like it doesn't even matter like what the accusations are. Like I'm willing to talk to like anyone, because I think like regardless of whether the person did something or they didn't do something, or regardless of whether they like should I think that they should be banned from events or whatever, like we're fucking human beings and everyone needs support. Everyone needs someone to talk to. And we need to treat people like human beings. And so like every person that I've talked to thus far that's been ostracized in their community has expressed to me that they've had thoughts of suicide over it. Which is why I will fight people tooth and nail on canceling people. It's one thing if you feel like this person, you really truthfully feel like this person needs to be banned from a certain space. You've, collected evidence, whatever, that's whatever. But I think to completely like cut people out and just ice them out, stop talking to them, and not try to offer support and resources is fucked up.
Or a road back. Lace?
There you go. Oh,
Why I'm having a problem.
stop inviting her. She'll get, there she is.
Whoa. So thank you. So Cosmo, I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what you said. And I could only say a couple of years ago, they were not share. I have been a part of a coalition partner since I came out, like 2018, until probably about last year. And none of those reports were made available to me. I have called on a couple of people to find some information. They were very, very broad. They don't, because they're protecting themselves. I understand that. They are like, yes, we have X amount of complaints about this person, and these are the organizations that agreed to, to be known. So like you had to go through this journey to like then contact those organizations and stuff like that. the other part that I thought was significant and a little disturbing was that anybody can call or make a report. I can say, Phoenix, violated my consent, and they take it. And what they say is they need 2 people to come forward against a certain person in order to make record of it. But in all of that, and I've done some volunteer work with them, in all of that, for me, it still remains ambiguous. Is there a list? Is there not a list? And that is the truth. And that's what I gotta say there. And by the way, my name is Leif, and I am a cancel person. It's a club, straight up. And you know what? It's the popular people. If a popular person decides to make up some stupid story about you, then it runs rampant through the community, and I have been blessed in that the people that really know me, they're not buying that shit.
Please, can I take that name, the Canceled Club?
Yeah,
Seriously.
I think we should start one.
All from
I think we should look right here. There's you, Cosmo, me, Phoenix.
We're in the
That's
club.
4.
Yeah,
That's
we're all in the
4
club.
right there. Let's make it official. House
We
of
have a club.
Canceled. Yeah. So and that's also a big problem. And it goes back to what you said, Master Joshua. These people that are like running the world here, they're the ones, and from my personal experience, and there are many, and I would happily share names with you privately, many people that are covered people, that all of this, and they do not do it. If you look at my history, I have been attached to several organizations. Okay, and guess what? Why didn't I stay with them? Because when you get inside and you find out that they're not walking their talk, I am out. So there's that. And this is like an uphill battle. And I'm not, I keep telling people, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to be here. So get used to it. See this face? Mwah, look at it.
No,
Thank you.
I don't think it's an uphill battle because we're not going to die on this hill. What we're going to do is we're going to move on past this hill because this hill is nonsense. So Saul, and then what I also wanted to say, Sir Saul, before you jump on, we offer that mediation for free. Like we will sit and do this process as we've done for almost 10 years of sitting down and hearing people out and talking through resolution and coming up with answers because someone has to do it. And that's the thing about this lifestyle, this journey is this is what we do. We're not spotlighted and this is all you see, right? Like you guys are able to see all the pictures. I just saw that over there. Oh my God. Have we been spotlit the whole time?
I hope not, because that would be really frustrating. Lace is saying no. Oh, thank
all
God.
right.
Thank God. Yeah, thank you for everyone. This conversation went in a very particular direction, and I don't know that I knew that it was going to go in this direction.
I didn't even know this was the topic.
Yeah. Like clearly it's a hot thing for the people who have experienced it. And I'm trying to sit here. I'm sitting here trying to think for myself, where in the world, in other communities, do people do this kind of thing and get away with it? One of the comments in the chat is interesting. It's like it's 8th grade stuff. There is a part of it that is that for sure. But people act on the 8th grade level in all kind of communities. But I mean, this thing of where you can say somebody did something, and maybe because it's like sexual in nature to people, that it hits a different nerve, that people feel like they can say, so-and-so did something to me. Like if you go into work, like people, and even if somebody's like the biggest jerk in the world at work, even people who, like, not everyone like shuns them and calls them the worst thing and like treats them like persona. There's something about this community that's like such a hotbed for wanting to make people completely cut out. Like, I don't know. I'm sitting here cogitating upon the whole thing.
So Saul had their hand up earlier.
Okay, sure.
So Saul, you had your hand up before Cosmo. I don't know if Sir Saul is still here. Did you want to jump on that? Sorry for my rant.
I don't know. Is he still here?
He's still on.
Okay.
All right, no worries.
Well, we have like 2 minutes.
Cosmo, jump.
I just wanted to read my comment really fast that I put in the chat.
Reporting of sexual assault to police is 2 to 8%. I can dig up the source if someone wants it. I suspect false accusations to NCSF are higher because one, not all consent violations are sexual assault, and two, there aren't repercussions for false reporting. Oh, dude, listen. Yes.
Yeah. And that's just the part about people not fact checking. Right? Like that's the part that blew my mind. Cause I operate like in my own little bubble sometimes, in my own little corner of the world. And I can't even imagine the not fact checking thing, but apparently it is a thing. Anyways, Saul, I saw Saul's hand up again for a second.
Jump on, please.
Thank you. I don't want to take too much time from people because kind of getting close, but I just wanted to just comment on the topic, like consent. Like it goes. The topic of consent can go various ways and long periods of ways. But the one thing that I just thought about that can summarize everything in one word is just being aware and conscious. If let's say they say you gotta be a hustler to know a hustler. So if you think about, trying to inflict something and not on purpose, right? So the message that I'm trying to send is, in order for you to know, and let's say you're about to do can't talk right now, but what I'll say is if you're about to do have a scene for somebody, pickup play, that's what I wanted to say. So if you're about to do pickup play, if you're not sure about this person and maybe somebody's falsing and making false comments about this person saying that they're good, but it's actually not true, you have to be aware of the words that they choose, the way that they maneuver, the way that they pick those words. If you see that they're very convincing, but they're not true to themselves and their mouth does not match their words, that's how you know that that person is not being genuine. And you can even throw scenarios to them. And if they're trying to twist it, and this is where a little bit of reverse psychology comes in handy, because you can just give them a story and they'll be like, oh, well, I'll do this and this and that. But you're seeing that they're constructing it. See, myself, I am essential dominant, but I am also a sadist. So if you tell me right now, hey, will you do this to me? I'm like, oh, yeah, right away, 1 second. I will not be like, oh, well, you know what? That sounds like a great idea. I would like to do that to you consensually. But me, myself, I know who I am. So if you tell me something sadistic or sensual, I'll tell you right away what I'm going to do, because it's coming truthfully from who I am. And if I'm lying to you, hopefully you are aware about that. And then you can avoid meeting these people and interacting with these people. So I always like to say trauma is good, because it really develops the brain and the thought process to be aware of your surroundings. And when you accomplish that, then you can definitely move forward to where you're in a safer zone. Thank you.
Thank you, Soso.
7:01, we managed to make another hour completely disappear. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for those who were involved in the conversation.
Cosmo, listen, consent with Cosmo. That's what we're gonna call it.
Yeah,
Let's
we're
figure this
gonna
out,
we're
please.
do a class and you can come and teach it virtually.
Serious.
Yeah, if you're cool with that, but we can talk about that more.
Hey.
So, okay, so I guess I'll see you guys next week.
What's next week, Mama?
Oh, I don't know. I have to look it up. I should remember the, I don't know. It's something.
Well, see you next week.
Come, see you next week. You'll come anyway. It's posted. Wherever you see it posted, you'll see it. Okay. I always get in
Good
trouble.
night. Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good to see
Thank
Have a
you.
good
everyone.
week.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.